Bobby, I want to welcome you to my show here, and I appreciate you coming on board and sharing some facts and ideas about transaction coordinated services and how this is so important for real estate agents today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to go over this and, because there's not everyone knows what a transaction coordinator is, what they do. Sometimes, oh, I have an assistant, but there is some, crucial differences that, were helpful for real estate agents. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got some specific tasks that you do and accomplish and that are very beneficial for the average real estate agent. And I think that you're right. I think agents don't know or understand what the process is. And so hopefully we can provide some clarity today so that anybody that's even given it consideration can maybe even reach out and have a conversation with you and
absolutely.
see if it's something that would be fitting to their services. So let's talk a little bit about the role and the importance of the transaction coordinator services in real estate. How do you work with an agent's buyer or seller when it comes to the transaction coordinating service?
Yeah. So we pride ourselves on being a concierge level of service, and we don't just say that, we actually, follow that. So what we do as soon as we get a new transaction from the agent, we make sure we pick up the phone and introduce ourselves to the client. That way it causes a lot of it. There's no confusion about who's this person reaching out. I thought I'm working with an agent. We introduce ourselves, let him know, hey, I'm Bobby. I'm with Premier TC Services. I'm working with Paul, and I'm his transaction manager. This is what I do, contract to close. This is what I'll be helping you with. Earnest deposits due in a couple days. Obviously, your agent's still here if you need anything, but I'm going to be reaching out for a lot of paperwork and the administrative stuff and helping you there. If you have any questions, just reach out. And then from there, we start by sending our introduction emails and making sure everyone knows who we are.
Yeah. So for the agent that feels like, well, I don't want to have a transaction coordinator because I don't want to give up the communicating with my buyer or my seller, right? That's so because some agents actually feel
Yep.
this way. As a former managing broker, I heard this from agents is that
Definitely.
I don't want to stop communicating, and they feel like that is what they have to do, but that's not the case, right?
No, absolutely not. So the idea is that we're focusing on all the administrative and transaction stuff contract to close, and it frees up the agent to spend more time on other customers, but obviously importantly also that customer still, making sure that you're touching base with them a little bit more. For example, we send out, we call it a one sheet every Monday, and it goes out to everyone in the transaction, and it has absolutely all the due dates, where we're at on them, if it's completed yet, if we're working on it, if it's scheduled. And I always recommend our agents to reach out to their clients on that day because they've got it right in front of them, an update of everything going on. They can check in on that personal level, still go over everything in the transaction. And if anything, I feel like it would make it a little bit more better for the client because the agent's a lot more focused and fine-tuned on, the customer experience instead.
Yeah. So, and it really is creating better time management for the agent, right? It's because
Exactly.
you've taken away all this the little tedious things that we need to do and taking it off of our plate and where, yeah, we can still follow up and, maintain our business and do what we got to do, but you're doing all the behind the scenes stuff and making sure everybody's on the same page.
Exactly. Yeah. The idea is as soon as it goes under contract, we do everything to kind of guide it to closing. And then the agent can kind of take a bit of a step back on the administrative stuff, but obviously not the client relationships. But we save our agents probably anywhere from 15 to 20 hours per transaction, which is pretty significant. Some agents don't see it that way because, they're in the car driving and then they do something for an hour, maybe in that evening. And then it's a quick 30 minutes or a quick 5-minute call. But all those quick 5 minutes and interruptions in your day add up. And going back to what you said about time management, it's hard to manage your time when you have a bunch of buyers and sellers pinging you with questions and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I would think too that this would also be a way to manage errors, right? Or maybe make there be a error reduction in the sense that you're sending out checklists. You've got a checklist, right? And you're sending it
Yep.
out every week. So the agent can review it, the homeowner, buyer, seller can also see it. The other agent in the transaction gets a copy and can see it. So, and I know that most agents don't work off of checklists and
Right.
do everything, right? They're kind of
And the compliance for the brokerage too.
yeah. And I'm guilty too. I mean, a lot of stuff is up here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to remember to call so and so because yeah, today's the deadline for the EMD or something. Having those checklists, it's got to be big saver in creating error reduction, right?
Yeah, and how we kind of see it too is as well as obviously the checklist to make sure nothing falls through the cracks and us managing it for the agent and reducing those errors. Also the compliance work for the brokerage. I've noticed, I've managed a brokerage before and compliance has always been the biggest issue, chasing agents to get paperwork. So we kind of take that off of the agent completely because we're reviewing all the paperwork for the agent. We're coordinating signatures and stuff like that on addendas and disclosures. So yeah, that helps with the compliance and, errors.
Yeah. So being that you do work with multiple brokerages and compliance departments in those brokerages, and there's many platforms, right? So how do you handle the differences in the technology integration? Because, you do have to work on different platforms. So how do you handle that?
So we have a platform which we use. It's not ours directly, called Open to Close. And how we use it and leverage it is we have like a separate tab for each agent. So we know all the different platforms they're using. So it's easily organized for the transaction manager. And when we set up the first file, we put the defaults of like signature lines and things like that right away. So there can never be a mistake of us accidentally sending out on behalf of a different agent or something like that, or logging into the wrong platform. Our transaction managers are organized in, being able to work in those different platforms because we have additional checklists, again, of, okay, this agent has this compliance for their brokerage. This agent has this compliance for their brokerage. And we just kind of work off those additional checklists for the agents.